Welcome to episode 64 of Project Geekology. I am one of your hosts, Anthony, and I have a very special guest today. A guest that you all have near and dear to your hearts. And that guest is...
Dakota. I have returned from the Grand Line. It was treacherous. It was a little bit less eventful than I expected it to be, but I'm back and I'm ready to record and talk about all things One Piece, specifically the live action, but we're gonna dive a little bit into the anime and the manga so that we can just dissect this entire universe as far as we can. But we're going to stick primarily with the live action series. Anthony, I'm excited to be back on. I haven't been on in a couple months. And yeah, how have you been?
I have been good. You know, the audience, they've been hearing me, what I've been up to every step of the way. Perfect. You know, I've been kind of, whether I'm watching anime or I'm playing video games, I think that they want to hear, what have you been up to? What are the things that you have been working on? I know that it's been a significant amount of time to be able to talk about everything, but what are some of the highlights of some of the stuff that you've been doing?
Yeah. Highlights. All right, so I'm going to work my way back a little bit because I'm trying to think about what I have spoken about on the show or not. So I did a video on the Spider-Verse, specifically the first two movies in that series, how they're connected to the MCU. There's tangential connections and then there's like actual connections that may have ramifications within the MCU. So I made a video about that, as well as like its timeline and everything. So that was really fun. That was a good time. I'm currently actually making a timeline video on the first season of One Piece, the live action. That's gonna be a lot of fun. And it's a little bit surprising, I think, you'll find, because I've done a lot of research into the manga. I've done not a lot of research, but I've done some research into the anime to determine what the present day year is. And it's not as cut and dry as many fans seem to think it is. So I'm excited to dissect that a little bit and get a little deeper into what the potential timeline and present day year that the live action show dives into. And on like a more personal note, I got a new pet. I have a cat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I have a dog named Luna.
Yes, I just seen her wandering about.
Yeah, she's an Airedale. Is she behind me? No, she's not. She's an Airedale Terrier. She's a lot of fun. Good girl. We got a cat, a female cat we named her Umbra because, you know, we have Luna, the moon. Now we need the shadow of the moon, so the Umbra. So we chose Umbra as a name, and we've had her for probably 2 months now.
Oh, nice.
And today I think we found out that she's actually a boy, so it's going to be Umbro from now on.
Oh my gosh, bro.
Yeah, she started developing balls, and so that's a pretty sure sign that she's not a female.
It's like, hey, wait a minute.
You've been tricking us the whole time.
There was something that wasn't there before.
Yeah, so we're not totally sure about that yet. We'll get back to you, but pretty sure Umbra is an Umbro.
Nice. Or Umbreon, you know?
Oh, yeah, well, we thought about that too, yeah.
That was my first thought when you said Umbra. I was like, Umbreon.
Pokemon. Yeah. I also thought of, like, the planet Umbara, which is from Star Wars. That's, like, that really dark planet in the Clone Wars. Anyway.
Man.
Oh, Ahsoka. Ahsoka's been a huge part of my life. I don't know if it's been a part of your life, but yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I've been telling the fans about it. I honestly told them, and maybe you can put your 2 cents into it, but I said that while you can watch it and enjoy it without seeing Clone Wars and Rebels, I recommend at least seeing Rebels. Like, Rebels is going to make a clear picture, especially when it comes to these characters and their relationships with each other, because they don't establish it because it's already been established, you know, it's there in Rebels.
What's interesting about Ahsoka is that you don't technically need to watch Clone Wars and Rebels to understand what's going on. They give you all the pertinent information that you need in the episodes, but you will get a lot more enjoyment out of it if you do a little bit of homework, if you do a little bit of, you know, watching of Rebels and even Clone Wars. They do have that episode where they jump into flashbacks of the Clone Wars, or like visions of the Clone Wars.
That was so awesome.
Yeah, and the finale, without teasing anything or spoiling anything, they definitely tease a major arc in the Clone Wars. And you know what's funny? Like, my parents watched it. They haven't seen any of the animated series. They loved it. They really loved it. You know, like, they thght it was, like, real, like, fresh Star Wars to them. And that's exciting. for me to hear, like that this can be viewed not only as, like a follow-up to Rebels, but also just a solid entry into the Star Wars canon, even for those who haven't seen what came before. So that's exciting. And yeah, I would love to talk about it in more detail in a future episode, if you'll have me.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, and it'd definitely be awesome to talk about some of the influences of Heir to the Empire, into that.
Oh, dude, it's totally like leaning directly into that storyline. Like, and that Filoni has his standalone Star Wars film or not standalone, but it's like he has his own Star Wars film lined up, and everything is leading towards like an Heir to the Empire adaptation for canon. So it's really interesting. I'm excited to see what happens of it.
Absolutely, man.
Also, Loki just started up. I don't know if you've watched the first episode yet.
No, but I need to hop onto that. When it comes to like watching stuff, it depends on what it is. Ahsoka, I was like right on top of it. But when it comes to some of these other shows, Loki I'm excited for, but I have to be in the mood to want to sit down and watch something, because I don't want to sit and watch something that I know that I'm going to enjoy and not really give it the time of day that I want to give it,
Totally. Yeah, no, I totally feel that. Yeah, and it's interesting. For some reason, like, the Star Wars shows have, like, a tighter grasp on me when it comes to, like, I gotta watch this immediately.
Yes.
Versus the MCU shows. Even though, like, a lot of my content on YouTube is about the MCU, I've always felt a closer connection to the Star Wars universe just because it's what I grew up on, So, but I gotta be honest, Loki's Season 2's premiere is solid. Like, it's really a return to form. And the first season of Loki is amazing.
Right, yeah. It was amazing. And, I mean, we talked about it. We have an episode on that first season. And I'm pretty excited to hop into that. I think part of it stems from maybe some Marvel fatigue, because there's just a lot of stuff that they've been just, like, pumping out that's just, like, very subpar.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of their stuff that could be like knocked out of the park has been really lackluster. I mean, Secret Invasion, what a waste. In my opinion, I really believe that had some serious potential, and it lost a lot of people. It was just week in, week out, a very, like, all the reveals in Secret Invasion were super rote. Like, you were able to pick them out a mile away, like, oh, that's Nick Fury, oh, that's not Nick Fury, oh, this is just a scroll thing. But it was never surprising to me, which is like what spy thrillers are supposed to be. And that really, I think it did a number on the MCU, because they pushed it as something that's so huge and so big, and then it was just such a nothing burger,
I know that when the show first started, I think a couple of episodes in, you felt it was a little promising to you. Like, you felt good about it. And then I guess
it was promising.
Yeah, like it dragged on, and just people just really started picking that show apart. Like, anywhere from like the AI intro, they were like,
that was a little ridiculous. Yeah.
Into it.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to read the room a little bit when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, online, it may be, off of Twitter or off of X now. That's not a big deal, but like, when it comes to like the Twitter sphere, which is it's probably the most influential of the social medias in terms of, relaying ideas and stuff. Like, AI is not a popular thing right now online, just because it is taking up creative ideas. It's not replacing, manual labor. It's not replacing like desk jobs. For the most part, AI is replacing creative endeavors. And I think that a lot of people see that as like a serious issue going forward, and especially like the development of AI and being indistinguishable from, actual creative work from humans. And I think that's a very big fear, and it should be a big fear for any creator out there. But the idea of Marvel using it as one of their intros, or like using it in part as one of their intros, because it wasn't totally AI. A lot of people think it was 100%. But like they definitely use artifacts to make it its own thing. And I'm going to be a little controversial here. I actually do like the intro to a degree for that, because it's unique. It broke a standard that probably shouldn't have broken, because I don't think that Hollywood should use AI in that manner. But it worked in the sense that, from a thematic point of view, the shape-shifting scrolls could be anyone and anywhere, and it loses its like lifeness. No, it's not the word. It loses its ability to be lifelike. And I think that that's kind of what they were going for, and that like everything was shifting and like changing. And I think at the time that they made that intro, it wasn't as frowned upon as it is nowadays. But anyway.
I know you and we talked about AI a little bit, and it's not a good replacement for stuff, but it is a good tool, you know?
Oh, yeah, and you can definitely...
You're not going to take out a drill and expect it to build a home. You know, you need to have the actual person to work it. So it's a good companion to have. And honestly, to tell you the truth, it's almost like a really good Google. Like, I mean, if you need to find out answers, sometimes it replaces the need to search Google for hours when you got AI right there, you know? So there's different ways that it's being used, and I would say taking shortcuts and stuff that you shouldn't take shortcuts in, I could see where the problem is.
We'll be back after a quick break.
I hate talking.
Do you love talking about any topic and are never frustrated during conversations? Then I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if there are topics that you avoid, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Do you know the definition of every word others use? I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if you are curious about the definition and historical usage of words, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Do you know about current events and other random topics? Then I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if you enjoy conversations on a variety of topics, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Listen to I Hate Talking wherever you get your podcasts.
Episodes drop every Thursday. Listen, like, and follow I Hate Talking today.
Totally. And I do think that the ultimate idea of it, like replacing creative endeavors, is a scary thought, you know, like so we're recording this October 10th. It's a few days out from the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, has finally ratified their new agreement with the Association of Motion Pictures and TV Producers. One of the agreements that they came to together was not to use AI in a certain capacity, you know, like to replace writers or anything like that, because it was actually like a proposition that was proposed once the strike started. Well, we can use AI to like replace our writers, and that was just like such a scary thought, because like, no, writers do good work. They shouldn't have to fear for their jobs for that.
Exactly.
So that's like contractually in their thing now, so they can't be replaced in that respect. So AI has the potential to do a lot of good for mankind, ultimately. I want to say like it has like, there's more possibility for like a net good than a net bad, but there will be bad along the way, you know? Like there's going to be stumbling blocks that people are going to hate, and it's going to be an uphill battle for sure. And I'm not totally for it, you know? I'm going to be honest. Like, I do think that it's an excellent tool. It's a crazy tool, but I also think it's a tool that we're getting so quick and so readily that it's really dangerous, you know, at the offset. You know, like all of my wife's kids in school use ChatGPT for pretty much everything. And it's an entire class that's now useless almost, because she can't determine like whether or not like a kid is writing her essays themselves or if it's a computer writing them. And sometimes she can tell, because obviously like not all of them have a super, like a really intelligent lexicon of vocabulary or whatever. She can tell like if it's not their words.
Right. It's like, yeah, you need to go through and take out the stuff that you know that you wouldn't actually say.
What does this word mean? You have no idea.
Right. But yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Like taking a shortcut in stuff that you probably shouldn't take a shortcut in is a bad use of ChatGPT. But using it as a tool that can help make your work a little bit easier, your workload a little bit easier, still putting in the work.
I could see it. I could see it.
I mean, you see that I use it for editing. You know, I use it to help actually close a lot of the gaps and to take out filler words. We're creating this episode. I'm not using ChatGPT to actually create the episode. So it's a tool that I'm using to make my work easier. Honestly, it transcribes the whole episode and honestly makes it easier to edit, because I'm not looking at just a bunch of wavelengths. I'm looking at words.
Well, speak for yourself, because I'm writing down all your questions into ChatGPT so that I can just read out what it thinks in my voice. No, I'm kidding.
You know,
so we've been talking. We've been talking quite a bit about ChatGPT and Oka and Loki and even Secret Invasion and my cat Umbro. We should probably jump into... Oh, and also I've been playing a little bit of Baldur's Gate. That's also been a lot of fun.
Yes, man, that's so good.
Dude,
Baldur's is awesome, yeah.
Crazy
I love
game,
it.
crazy game. All right, so let's jump into our discussion of One Piece, the Netflix series. Going into it, Anthony, like, did you have high hopes?
Oh, no.
I know that...
Absolutely not. Absolutely. I had no hope in this being good.
Did you even know that it existed before it like popped up, or?
So yeah, I know that it existed for a little while now, but I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. And then I saw the trailer, and I feel like the trailer doesn't really show enough of the show, and it makes it look like a bad anime adaptation, in my opinion.
Interesting.
And look at the Cowboy Bebop one. The Cowboy Bebop trailer looked really good, but the actual show fell flat. Right. And I mean, but there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's just, yeah, I had no hopes for it. I saw the trailer, I was just like, I don't know. And then just my past experience with live action adaptations for any anime, I've seen the Death Note, wasn't a big fan.
That was a bad one.
That was a really bad one. There's like a live action Attack on Titan movie. I seen that, I'm like, no. And I mean, Cowboy Bebop, there's also...
They did Bleach.
Yeah, they did Bleach. I didn't get to see Bleach, but I've seen enough live action adaptations to say that it just doesn't work. Like,
you remember Dragon Ball Evolution? Dragon Ball Evolution.
Like, dude, that took the source material and was like, yeah, whatever. We're just gonna take the names from this anime, and I mean, dude, like, I don't understand it. They did the same thing with the Halo show. It's like, dude, you have the source material. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. If you want to take some liberties and add some stuff to it, that's fine. But stop trying to create this whole thing that already exists.
Right. Okay. Now that I have that opinion of you, you've experienced live action anime series before. I just want to preemptively, like before we start talking about One Piece proper, I want to just, like a couple months, probably about 6 months ago, I was sitting with Anthony in Florida. We were having a drink, and he like turned to me. He goes, I'm going to start watching One Piece. Or he said, I started watching One Piece. I'm going to watch it all.
Yeah.
And I looked at you. I looked at you like you were crazy. I'm like, dude, that's 1,000+ episodes. What are you doing? And you're like, I don't know, man. It looks pretty fun. And I thought you were crazy. I was just like, all right, well, have fun. Let me know how it goes.
I think in that moment, I was in the Alabasta saga.
Oh, so you had gotten pretty far.
Yeah, I had gotten pretty far. Right now, I'm in the Sky Island saga. I'm in Skypiea. The Skypiea arc.
Okay.
So yeah, like I'm pretty decent. I'm still like earlier on in the anime, but I'm deep enough to like be invested because like I'm almost 200 episodes in. But honestly, I could be further into the anime, but I take breaks. Like I'll take, maybe like a couple weeks off, and then like I'll hit it hard again,
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's 1,000 episodes of TV.
Yeah.
I messaged you a couple weeks back. Or I don't remember what I said, but it amounted to early reviews for the live action One Piece are saying it's an excellent adaptation. What did you think when I said that?
When you told me, I was just like, wait, what? So I had to look it up myself, and I'm like, dude, what? And everybody's literally saying the same thing. I mean, there were some reviews that were kind of like, on it, but for the most part, most of the reviews were pretty happy with it and saying that, oh, this show has broken the curse. And I'm like, dude, wait, what? Oh, I need to see this then. I was gonna watch it anyway, but I didn't hold out much hope for it before seeing all that stuff. Not to say that reviews will stop me from going to see anything, but a lot of the times reviews are right about some stuff.
Yeah, they're at least indicative of like how you can expect to receive it, especially if it's like a reviewer that you like trust, or like that they're excited for it. Like, all right, I like what they're into usually. I'll probably check this out. So I heard early rumblings. So I'm in a group chat with a couple reviewers on Twitter, and I heard early rumblings that this was like to take a line from the show, not the King of the Pirates, but like King of the Anime adaptations. And I was just like, really? All right, well, I gotta check it out then. And yeah, it turns out I loved it. I kind of savored it, watched maybe like 1-2 episodes tonight, watched it over the course of about a week. Super solid, bro. Just so impressive. And it got me into One Piece because prior to that, I had maybe seen one episode of One Piece, like episode 700 something for some reason, and I didn't understand a thing about it, and I've never read any of the manga, but it got me really into it. And since then I've been reading I just ordered volumes 5 and 6 of the manga, and they should be coming either tonight or tomorrow, so I'm excited about that.
The live action adaptation got a lot of people to go and watch the anime or pick up the manga. So now there's like a whole new wave of One Piece fans. But yeah, I made the decision earlier this year before the release of the live action adaptation, or like even before they were talking more about it and releasing the trailer. I'm just gonna go and watch One Piece. Why not? Miguel has been watching it. He's been telling me. Dude, I've seen bits and pieces of One Piece throughout the years. I remember seeing some of it when I was a kid and thinking back, like, you know, this anime looks really cool. I want to watch it, but I just never got to it. Before we knew it, dude, we're over 1,000 episodes in now. But there are reasons that keep me going. To tell you the truth, the episodes really aren't that long, especially when you get to certain arcs. They'll have the intro music, and then they'll have a whole recap, and before you know it, you're skipping like 3 minutes of the episode. Then you got the outro, which is like another like almost 2 minutes.
That's true. Yeah.
For the most part, there's a lot of episodes that it brings it from a 22-minute episode down to like 17, 18 minutes. And honestly, how many people will watch a 17, 18-minute YouTube video, like several of them, you know, over a period of time? So
that's a good point.
Dude, One Piece, it's not as intimidating as a lot of people think it is. Sure, it's a lot of episodes and you still have to go through a good bit of it, but it's not super long. Like, the episodes aren't super long. Dude, I blasted through like 60 episodes last month. No, more.
Wow. Wow, really?
Like 70.
Dang. Yeah, so, okay. Couple years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, I was really big into Crunchyroll. I was watching pretty much all the new releases whenever, you know, they would come out. Crunchyroll has weekly releases for each new season of anime. They uploaded a good chunk of One Piece to their service, and they were releasing new episodes of One Piece. I was just like, instead of watching it was like 700 something episodes, I'll just skip to the most recent one. And it was like the end of the arc of like Dressrosa. So I was just like, I have no idea who any of these people are or what the heck they're talking about. But it was impressive animation, at least, you know, at least I enjoyed it. But yeah, I didn't watch any more after that. So this was really my introduction proper, and I'm glad that I chose this route, because it's gotten me really excited about diving into the manga more and diving into the anime. Because even, you know, going from the manga to the anime, I'm noticing some variations, you know, like it is an adaptation of the manga. It's not a one-for-one, you know, there is some wiggle room in terms of like how the story is adapted, like what the characters say to each other. And I find that that's really cool, you know, I find it's really interesting. And it also makes it a little more easier, or a little more palatable, when I notice the big changes from the manga to the live action, because the live action is said to be an adaptation of the manga, not an adaptation of the anime. So yeah, so it's interesting. Like I'm noticing, especially like starting with episode 3 with like the Black Cat Pirates, that whole arc, while it's very similar, you know, like the final battle, instead of being like on the beach, is inside of the mansion. You know, I think that's an interesting choice, and I think it worked really well for the episode, or the story that they were trying to tell, you know.
Right. So they definitely took some liberties that I felt like didn't hurt it. But I do say, so one of the biggest things that this live action adaptation had versus a lot of these other adaptations is the fact that Oda was behind it.
Yeah.
The actual creator of One Piece. So this, you know, he was behind this live action. You know, I was saying that he would even, you know, go for reshoots, and
which is crazy. It's crazy to think like how like much of a hand he had in like making sure that this was done right.
Which is awesome, because that shows how much respect the showrunners have for the source material.
Totally.
Which which is super important. Like this adaptation, liberties can be taken and they can be done tastefully, but you have to do it in a way that respects the source material, and that's exactly what happened. And dude, I absolutely enjoyed it. I've long gone through the East Blue saga. It missed out like one little piece in the East Blue saga that's going to be in the next season, but that doesn't mean that it was cut out, you know?
Yeah. They're clearly going towards that. Yeah, it's really interesting that like they chose to, you know, get the creator's opinion on pretty much all steps of this. And like you said, he was calling for reshoots on certain stuff. Like if it didn't work for him, it didn't work for the crew, which is so cool. Before we like start talking about like individual characters, I just want to say like the sets on this show were like insane. You know, like the location shooting, the sets that they built, like the Baratier restaurant. Dude, that was the coolest set ever. I want to go there. That's like, if they ever make like a one-piece Disney World or amusement park, that needs to be there. There needs to be like an outdoor bar that like is in like the fish's mouth. Dude, that's such a cool idea. And, dude, it's so much about this show because I rewatched it recently while I was doing my notes for the video that I'm writing. Everything is like just fun to look at, you know, like they chose interesting camera angles. There's a lot of like moving cameras that like make the action more dynamic. There's a lot of really close-ups on people's faces that like really showcase the emotion of the scenes that they're in. It almost makes you forget like how corny and how campy all of this really is. Like if you really think about like what you're watching, it suspends that disbelief because the characters believe it. Like you could tell that the story and all the cast and crew were super earnest about telling the whole story that they wanted to tell and like making it faithful to the source material as far as they could, you know. And I think that earnestness came across so well on screen that it just, any like camp or any corniness that like floated up like with Buggy or the Black Cat Pirates or whatever, I didn't care. It was cool. It felt like part of the world. It was part of the world building, and I can't wait to see like what they do with characters like Chopper moving forward. Like, how the heck are they going to do that?
Right. So I've had some people that they've had a couple of gripes about the anime as far as that, they've
the live action.
Yeah, they've had gripes about the live action because of that. And, you know, these are people who watch the anime. I'm like, dude, like, you watch the anime. That zaniness, that camp is there.
Yeah,
it's
you're just
there. Like
the difference is that's a cartoon. You know, like that's literally it.
I would even say that the live action dials it back a bit because the anime goes over the top with it.
Yeah, so quite a bit.
I would say they make it a lot more believable with it being a live action, because some live actions lean too much into the craziness of anime and it doesn't come off right, you know?
Right, it doesn't come off genuine. Yeah, I think a big portion of like why this worked was the actors themselves, you know, like the character or the actor who played Luffy, Iñaki Godoy, I think his name is. Dude, such a good actor. He was so fun to watch on screen. You know, like every interaction he had with his crew, you know, whether he had a smile on his face or it was like near the end of the season where he's, you know, like telling Nami, of course I'll help you. Like, dude, everything was just like pitch perfect for the character of Luffy. It felt so right. At least for a live action version of him, you know?
So I totally agree. And I say that he has that lovable, that like Luffy is lovable, kind of dumb sometimes.
He's aloof. Yeah, he's definitely aloof.
He absolutely is. But when you need for him to be serious, Luffy is there. And they really capture that here in the live action, where, you know, pretty much both sides of Luffy. And he really does do a great job with that character. Honestly, the rest of the cast do. I've experienced these characters now for almost 200 episodes. So, you know, and a lot of people have been with them for now over 1,000. So to really see that they got these personalities down packed is really just refreshing, because that's really what's important. The setting is important, obviously, to make sure that they got it right, but you also want to make sure that these characters are tapping into their actual characters that they're portraying.
Yeah, and sometimes actually I find that the live action is, in some ways, it's a closer approximation of what the manga had to say than the anime. Or, sorry, like the live action was closer to the manga in some areas than the anime was. You know, like I'm kind of going all over the place with the discussion, but bear with me. It was on my mind when you were talking. At the end of the first episode, they've got the map to the Grand Line. They're about to sail off, and then Kobe goes, I'm going to join the Marines. And, there's that, heartwarming send-off from Luffy, we're friends now. We shared a meal. Well, he doesn't necessarily say that in the manga. What happens in the manga is very similar in that Kobe does say that near the boat, and there's a nice send-off there. In the anime, there's a whole scene where Kobe and Luffy start fighting so that Kobe can pretend to be Luffy's enemy so that he can join the Marines, and that's just something that they totally made up for the anime just for the sake of it. But in both adaptations, it kind of highlights Luffy's ability to show up in the character that he needs to be. In the anime, he was very much he played the part so that Kobe could get the job to join the Marines. In the anime, it was just it was a nice send-off because these two characters had grown to care for each other even in the short span of time that they had. So I don't know, it's cool how all these different adaptations exist, and in some ways the live action is closer to the manga, in some ways the anime is closer to the manga, but they all stem from the same story. And it's exciting because this whole world of One Piece is kind of opening up to me, so I'm just excited to get further into it, closer to where you are. Obviously, I'm only 4 episodes into the anime, so I don't have too much to say about what happens after that point, but I'm 35, 36 chapters into the manga now, so I'm fairly deep in there, but still in the East Blue.
Nice. Yes.
Let's go through the characters and see how you liked each character versus what you are used to from the anime. So, Nami.
So I feel that Nami, her name is Emily Rudd.
Right.
And so I personally feel like she did a really good job as Nami. And Emily Rudd she's actually an anime fan and has been keeping up with One Piece for a while now, actually.
Really?
Even outside
in relation to the show?
Right. So I remember seeing on her Instagram that she had made a post about Nami some years ago, and I was like, okay, it was it's crazy how it ended up where it ended up with her being Nami.
Yeah.
But I think that she, that the mannerisms she has, especially in those earlier episodes where she's kind of just with them to get what she needs. She needed that map for the Grand Line so that she can...
Yeah, she's still distant at that point.
Right. She's not part of the crew, even though it's Luffy, just like on the anime, is all right, we're a crew, and Nami and Zoro are both we're not a crew,
I love that stuff.
They got it down packed pretty well. And something that I really like that they did with the show is that Oda had explained where each and every one of these characters are from, and they went with that version.
You mean in the from the manga, or just
So Luffy is actually Brazilian.
Oh, you mean actually nationality?
Nationality, right. Luffy is Brazilian. Nami is Swedish. Sanji is English. Zoro is Japanese. Obviously, Usopp is actually African. Chopper is a reindeer.
I love it. Spoilers for me. Is Chopper actually a reindeer, or is he someone who ate a devil fruit?
Chopper is a reindeer that ate a devil fruit.
It's so stupid. I love it.
Chopper is one of those lovable and wholesome characters in the show, and his story is actually really sad when you get to it.
Oh god.
Because I'm just a little history on him was that he was a reindeer that was born with a blue nose, so kind of like a Rudolph situation where he was being rejected by the other reindeer, and then so he eats this devil fruit that allows him to turn into a person. So he got rejected even more by the reindeer, and then rejected by people because they're that's a monster,
That's hilarious. Oh man, that's terrible.
Yeah. So Jamie Lee Curtis is putting out there that she wants to be one of the doctors in that Chopper arc, the arc that introduces Chopper. So
yeah,
that'd be interesting. Her name is Dr. Correa, and when you actually get to meet her, I could see Jamie Lee Curtis playing that character.
All right, that's interesting. I don't know if she's supposed to be campaigning right now, considering the Screen Actors Guild is currently on strike, but hey, respect the grind, I guess. So let's go up to Zoro. Before we get to that, Iñaki Godoy, I believe he's Mexican, but I thought he was Brazilian too. Like he has that look, that curly hair that is very common for Brazilians, and obviously the skin tone is very similar.
Well, he's from that region of the world.
Sure, so. Yeah, South and Central, yeah. So what do you think of Mackenyu Arata as Roronoa Zoro?
Yeah, I think he did great.
Right?
I think he did fantastic.
He was fun.
I liked his vibe. So I know that this is going to sound blasphemous to some people. So I've been watching the One Piece anime, like the dub. Sure. And a lot of that is because I meet some of these voice actors when I go to these anime conventions. And Chris Sabat does Zoro's voice.
Oh, does he?
Yes.
Dude, he does everyone.
All Might, Vegeta, yes. He does Zoro.
He does everyone.
So, seeing Zoro on the screen, they really, nailed it. He looked great on the screen, especially when you got to the Baratier and he fights against Mihawk and he does the three sword stuff. The three sword stuff.
What a great scene.
And if you look at that scene side by side with the anime, it's, so very close.
Really? You think it was on purpose, or? Cool.
So I think that's one of those scenes that I think there was certain scenes that they wanted to make sure that they nailed it. There's other stuff that they knew that they could take liberties on, but they wanted to make sure that certain things were on point with the anime and maybe the manga. Whereas when Nami asks Luffy for help, that was pretty much almost one for one between the anime and the live action. Really?
So that's cool, because I know that I was reading some comments made by one of the producers of the series, and he was saying that he was a big One Piece fan, the anime first, before getting into the manga. So that makes a lot of sense. And actually, when you think about the most anime scene of the entire first season, it's that fight between Roronoa Zoro and Dracula Mihawk. The fact that he pulls out a little knife and is just using it to stop three blades is just crazy. It's the most anime thing you could possibly think of. That would never happen in any other medium ever. So that makes sense that they obviously used inspiration from what was already there in the anime. So that's cool. What do you think of Usopp? Jacob Romero Gibson played Usopp.
I think he did a great job too. Usopp's one of those... He's an interesting character because he's one of those characters that he likes to boast, oh, I'm Captain Usopp, I'm the greatest warrior there is, and then when things go down, he runs, So that's what Usopp does, he'll go and he hides. But I will say, to be all fair, when you need to count on Usopp, he does follow through for the most part. And there's a lot to love about Usopp, and I feel like the live action adaptation did that pretty well. I mean, minus the really weird nose that he has.
Yeah, I think that they're okay with, removing that crazy nose. I think it just makes it a little bit more believable. What I really liked about...
I kind of seen it because his nose was a little bit on the skinnier side. It was a wider nose. He had a skinnier nose. But I feel as long as he looked the part, and he had the character's personality, and he did really well. He was very believable as Usopp.
Yeah, I really loved the relationship that he had with Kaya.
Yeah.
He really cares for this person. This... By the way, if you guys haven't, actually sat down to watch the live action One Piece, I don't want to, spoil this for you. It's really, really good. It has absolutely no right being as good as it is. So I 100% highly recommend watching this. If you're a fan of the One Piece anime or manga, definitely watch it, because this is definitely getting a second season. And
yes, it's been confirmed.
Yeah, and it's become one of Netflix's most popular series within, a very short time. This is going to end up being one of those Stranger Things, Wednesday, Squid Game types things where it's just it becomes a movement, in terms of this is a holy grail of Netflix properties. I highly recommend giving it a shot, because even if you think it's a little bit corny, just push through it. I promise you by the end, you're just going to be like, you're going to be in tears, you know, like by the end of episode 7, you're just like, holy crap, this is amazing.
I agree. It has no right to be that good, because most of the time they're not good. You know, these anime adaptations really just are not, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a great time. It really brought a lot of people into the One Piece scene that most of the time wouldn't give anime the time of day, you know?
100%. Yeah. Pretty much my whole family. I haven't gotten my parents to watch it yet, but like both my brothers have seen it. Austin, you know, my brother Austin, he's such a like contrarian, you know, like, oh, well, I don't really like One Piece. I've given it a shot a long time ago and I really don't like it. But he really liked the first season of this show, so obviously he's given One Piece a second chance, obviously. But anyway, yeah, it's a surprisingly good show. And no, not even a good show, it's a surprisingly great show. From a production standpoint, to a camera standpoint, to an adaptation standpoint. And obviously the story is as good as it is in, I would say that the manga is, you know, like, I think they do a really good job of adapting what was originally told into a live action medium. I was saying something about like Kaya and Usopp and their relationship. You know, Kaya is this girl who's been slowly poisoned over the course of a couple years, and Usopp is, you know, just like this town liar who, you know, comes and tells her these like tall tales of, you know, heroics and piracy, and when it comes down to him actually, like, you know, being a pirate or, you know, being a heroic individual, he doesn't really, it's not something that comes natural to him, but in the moment he does what needs to like happen. And I love that, like, by the end of the season you get a couple scenes of him, you know, doing what, you know, a hero would do, and I think that that's pretty cool. Everyone gets their shot.
Right. See, that's what Usopp's character is. Like, Usopp will be that guy that kind of runs and cowers. It's like, all right, well, like, no, let's go. But then he will have his moments of heroism. It's funny because in the anime, that's his thing. He is known as the liar because he'll just like keep on running through towns. The characters that they missed in this one was his little, like, he had these little buddies in the anime, and they were called the Usopp Pirates.
Yeah, he had like 3 little kids who were like his crew.
Right. And like he would just like run through the town like, oh, the pirates are coming, you know? And
they would call him Captain Usopp.
Yes, they called him Captain Usopp.
So that kind of makes sense why he, you know, calls himself Captain Usopp in the live action, but it doesn't really make as much sense in the live action because they kind of skip those characters.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's one thing. That's a small issue that I have. You know, there's a couple things here and there that I'm not huge on, but like nothing that I hate. You know, I don't think there's anything that I hate. Was there anything you actively disliked, Anthony?
Not that I can say. Like I said, they did cut out a couple things. In the Baratier, there was actually a big thing that was actually kind of cut out in the Baratier scene. Did you get to that in the manga?
I haven't. I'm almost there, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But you can tell me.
I don't know how it is in the manga, but you know how Mihawk cuts down that pirate named Don Krieg?
Yeah.
So Luffy actually fights Don Krieg in
interesting.
the anime. Yeah, there's like this whole thing where they show up. So you know that pirate that Sanji feeds?
Yes.
He's actually somebody from that crew.
So that ends up kind of crew.
Right. So that ends up kind of playing out into the whole thing. But yeah, Luffy fights Don Krieg and like throws down. There's like this whole crazy like guy in this giant metal ball in that fight. Yeah, there's a lot that goes on in that fight. But I will say that the way that they went about it was kind of cool and showing the power that Mihawk has.
Sorry,
and sliced the ship.
Yeah, my cat's running around. She's making all kinds of weird noises. Bro, at it again. Yeah, dude, he sliced the ship like from like 50 feet away. How did he do that? Power of anime, and God was on his side. Yeah, dude, I'm really excited to dive deeper into this. Like, just digging into like the history of this world is like super fun. Like going, because in my video that I'm making, I'm going back to like all the flashbacks. So this is like 22 years ago, 10 years ago, 8, 9, 7 years ago, and I'm kind of like piecing it all together and like how it would have landed chronologically. And it's fun. You know, I'm having a really good time exploring like the back history of all these characters and like what's going on with everyone. What did you think of Sanji?
Oh, dude. Sanji was
I think
so good.
he had like a real presence, like a camera presence, you know?
He had a real presence, and he did really good with Sanji. The actor, what's his name? His name is
Taz Skylar.
Taz Skylar did a really great job as Sanji. He got the mannerisms, the hand in the pocket, and that's Sanji's thing is kicking, and that's what he did.
Is it because he doesn't want to like mess up his hands for cooking?
I'm pretty sure that I think that was something that he said. I think that was his explanation.
Okay.
But yeah, and I love that they had him cook and plate, and it looked very gourmet.
Yeah.
And when he came on, I was so impressed with the kitchen on the Going Merry, which is the name of the ship.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, this is an amazing kitchen. They
right?
got like all these spices and stuff in there. It looked amazing.
I know. Dude, all the sets were amazing. You know, from the Going Merry to the Baratier to Buggy's little tent, like circus tents. That they changed that story quite a bit too, but I had a fun time with them. What did you think of some of the enemies that they had, like Buggy and Axe-Hand Morgan?
I think that they did a really good job. That fight during the Axe-Hand Morgan part was really good. That's where you got the first taste of like true combat in that from the live action from like the anime. And I was like, man, it was in that moment I was like, dude, I'm gonna love this so much. And then you got to Buggy, and you finally got to experience some of the weirder devil fruit powers, which is the chop fruit and how he could break his body apart.
Yeah. What's amazing about that for me is that, you know, if you look at some of the future stuff that happens in One Piece, or some of the future characters that are just so insane and crazy.
Yes.
I have faith that they'll do it with at least some level of respect to the source material, because they were able to do Buggy so well. You know,
yes.
Like it wasn't just a guy in a clown outfit. It was a guy in a clown outfit who could be sliced and diced any which way. And It was the craziest fight in probably the entire show, just because it was so weird. But
Yes,
they did it really well.
So the next devil fruit power that we'll be experiencing, it will be in Logtown with Captain Smoker.
And they tease him at the very
Yes.
end.
Yeah, they do. That was him.
Okay, all right.
Man ate a fruit and started chain smoking.
It is what it is.
That dude will have like 3 cigars like in his mouth. He has like cigars lining his jacket. It's so crazy. It's gonna be interesting to see his live action counterpart. But they did Arlong really good, and Arlong actually showed up earlier in the live action than he did in the anime. So in the anime, like I said, the big villain that they fought was Don Krieg, but Arlong shows up at the Baratier, and so like he kind of like shows himself. But I really think that they did a really good job. He was imposing, he had the swagger to him. It really did well in the live action for its anime counterpart, at least.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think what you're trying to say is that for the sake of brevity, you know, because it's live action, it's a lot harder to get 1,000 episodes of live action than it is to get, you know, like they had to condense quite a bit. So they had to make some creative cuts and like overlap story arcs. So they overlapped what they were doing with Arlong and Don Krieg, you said.
Yes.
Throughout the Baratier, so that it could, you know, thematically weave into the Arlong Park stuff and the Cocoa Village. Yeah, dude, I think they did a phenomenal job with all that, because, you know, I haven't gotten that far into the manga, I haven't gotten that far into the anime, but it worked from like a thematic story point. And did it work for you? I know that you said that like they changed quite a bit, but like, did that work for you, or would you have rather they kept the Don Krieg stuff?
So when I saw that Don Krieg was in there, I was like, oh, you know, that I think it'll be cool to see how that fight plays out, but it didn't play out in the live action. But with the direction that they went with, I was like, oh, okay. And at least with Arlong showing up, at least it made sense, because like that's where they were headed anyway.
Right, yeah, so it's like they just kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah, so I'm excited to see where the show goes now that the writer's strike is over, and hopefully, like I think that they've been really hard at work to get the acting strike over as soon as possible. I think the goal is to film the next series I think early next year or early, let me see, because I know that they had plans for it. Anyway, yeah, I know that they have plans, obviously, for way down the line. I think that they said that they have at least 6 seasons planned if Netflix will give it to them. So the fact that they were able to cover most of East Blue throughout this season is pretty cool, you know?
Yes. So I'm wondering how they're going to go about, obviously next season they have to get through Logtown and them actually navigating to the Grand Line. And then there's like a whole lot that happens between pretty much that point all the way up into... So like the whole of the next saga is going to be the Alabasta saga, which I don't know if they're going to be able to do all that in one season. Because there's a lot.
Yeah, because it's pretty big.
It is pretty big.
But would you have thought they could do all of the East Blue in one season?
I wish it was 8 episodes?
It was 8 episodes, yeah.
Had they added another episode or 2, I feel like they could have maybe
finished the entire arc or whatever.
Right.
I see what you're saying. Okay. Well, I'm excited to see where the show goes. Hopefully the next, now that it's a proven success, because you have to understand, like, Netflix only bought 1 season of this to start off, just to test the waters. This turned out to be a huge hit, and they spent a lot of money on the first season. With the second season, maybe they'll give them more episodes to play with. Maybe they'll give them a little bit more money to like flesh out the CGI and the sets and stuff. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. But
yeah, you can't have a One Piece live action adaptation without throwing some money into it.
Yeah,
it is a beloved series. I mean, it's one of those ones that honestly now spans over generations. So
yeah, you know what I'm really excited about now that they've proven that they could do a decent live action adaptation of an anime. I'm really excited to see what they do with Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm nervous. I'm really nervous. Obviously.
Nervous. So what makes me nervous about that is because one of the things that made this live action adaptation of One Piece work the most, I feel like Oda being a part of that project is really what is pretty much one of the biggest things that contributed to the success. And the fact that the studio seemed to be firing on all cylinders, like everybody just was putting in the work that they were supposed to, from direction, from the production side to the acting side to those who put up the sets, all the special effects, like everybody did such a great job. And remember, with the whole Avatar thing, there was some strife that happened between the creators of Avatar and Netflix. So
you're right. Yeah, when you're right, you're right. I mean, I
we'll
can't argue with that logic. But
we'll see. All I know is that if they mess this show up, I'm going to boycott Netflix until the next season of One Piece.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. All right, Anthony, it was good talking to you about One Piece this evening. What do you want to talk about next week?
Yes, absolutely.
Or, what do you want to talk about next time?
That's a good
Ahsoka?
question. Yeah,
or dive into Ahsoka?
Now that Ahsoka's out, all the episodes, it finished last week. By the time that episode comes out, it's gonna be a good little
2 or 3 weeks out.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, guys, make sure that you get in your Ahsoka if you want to listen to the episode, because I'm pretty sure that we're going to be talking a good bit about that. I definitely want to do it again so that I can be fresh on that.
100%. Yeah, Ahsoka's a good time. Don't sleep on it if you haven't seen Rebels or Clone Wars, but also we do recommend checking out at least Rebels, or like watching a highlight reel of what happened in Rebels on YouTube or whatever before going into Ahsoka. But yeah, thanks guys. We appreciate you listening to us here for our 64th episode of Project Geekology. We're about to head out of the East Blue, head straight to the Grand Line and to Arabasta, or Alabasta as the anime calls it. Have a good one.
Actually, before we sign off, Dakota, what is the One Piece?
The One Piece is the friends we made along the way.
And all of Goldie Roger's treasure.
Well, actually, I'm gonna ask you, because I'm not huge on like the One Piece fandom, so I don't actually know too much about like what happens. But I do know that there's this one guy called Mont Blanc Noland, who had, told the king of, his nation that he had found a city of gold. And by the time that the king came to look for the city of gold, it had supposedly sunk into the sea. And he was labeled as the liar.
Yes.
Could the One Piece be this city of gold?
I'm actually in the arc that deals with that now. Yeah. So I haven't got to the part to where they find the gold, if there is gold. But I am at the part where they found out what happens with the city, or the part of the islands where the city was, what happened to it.
So Noland might not be the liar he's suggested to be. Interesting. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Some stuff happened between the time of his discovery and the time that he brought all the people over. So
fascinating. I can't wait to get to that.
Yeah.
Okay, Anthony, have a good night. Friends, have a good morning, wherever you're, or whatever time you're listening to this. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.
alrighty, bye.
Bye.